Hello students, welcome to Learner's Planet. Let us continue with the chapter Diversity in Living Organisms. This is the 21st theory session of this chapter. Until now, I have already explained you about the different 5 kingdoms, right? And in this we have of course discussed in little bit more detail about the kingdom Plantae and the kingdom Animalia. So kingdom Animalia, as we were discussing earlier in the previous session, that this kingdom Animalia is divided into 2 groups, that is Chordata and the non-Chordata. So till the previous session, I have already explained you about the phylums that come under the group non-Chordata, right? Non-Chordata, that means in which the notochord is absent. Right. So over there I have discussed about the various phylums like Porifera, then Coelenterata, Platyhelminths, Nemathalminths, Annelida, Arthropoda, Mollusca and Echinodermata. You should remember all these names as they are coming in which particular group. Okay. So now in today's session I'm going to discuss about the group Chordata. Right. So Chordata, of course, it is also divided into various groups further. Right. So in today's session I will just explain you those basic characteristic features which are peculiar in the organisms that are placed under the phylum Chordata. Okay, and then we will discuss about the subclassification. So phylum Chordata. Again, I must repeat one thing, that the animals that belong to the phylum Chordata, of course, they share the characteristic features which were discussed previously in the earlier sessions, or I can say like in the lower groups. Okay, for example, the general features like these organisms, they are bilaterally symmetric, as we have studied in the other invertebrates or the non-chordates, isn't it? Besides this, these organisms, they are triploblastic and they are coelomate. That means they are eucoelomate. They are having a true cavity. Okay. Now you can imagine that what type of cavities are present in the human beings, like abdominal cavity, buccal cavity, isn't it? There are different cavities. So these cavities, they are actually resembling this true coelom. Okay. Besides this, I should say at this point that the general features that are shared by all of the organisms that belong to kingdom Animalia, of course, they are present in this group also. But as the complexity is increasing, definitely in the subclassification, we should now concentrate over those specific features which are now present in these complex organisms. So the very first feature which is present here is the nerve cord. So this nerve cord, basically it is a long cord which is made up of nerve fibers, and it runs along the length of animal's body. In non-chordates, this particular nerve cord, it can be either ventral in its position or it can be dorsal in some others, like the different phylums that I have mentioned in the introduction in this session itself. Over there, it may be present, it may not be present. Then if it is present, then it may be like ventral or it may be dorsal. Further, it may be single or it may be two. Okay, it may be present in pair in some of the group. So basically the nerve cord is showing such type of variation and simplicity over there in the lower groups. But when we are discussing about the chordata, then in chordata, it is of course always there is a single nerve cord in higher animals, and it is having a dorsal position. It is hollow and tubular in its structure, which runs along the length of animal's body. And this nerve cord, in the higher organisms, it is actually forming the brain and the spinal cord. Okay, so this is how it is as the complexity increases, the constitution and of course the function, the different features related to nerve cord also varies. Before I proceed further, I want to just give you one reminder that you know exactly what this dorsal or ventral means. Similar terms are there like anterior and posterior. You have idea. You must be having this idea as we are discussing it since long. but exactly what it means and what position is known as the ventral or the dorsal side, let me just clear it with the help of one picture. So here is this particular picture. It is a tiger, and in this animal, not only this, it is just a representative group. Okay, I'm just representing it for the entire animal kingdom. Okay, so in these organisms, this top region, right, the side which is facing towards the sky, this particular side is known as the dorsal side. So I can just label it here. This part is the dorsal side, and opposite of that, which is facing down towards the ground, is actually a ventral side, right? And the side where the mouth is present, this side is known as the anterior side, and the other part where the tail is located, this part is known as the posterior side. So anterior and posterior, I hope it must be very clear to you. Okay, but regarding dorsal and ventral, let us say, let us just assume like if a dog is resting and in a opposite direction, or let us say we are taking a nap, right, and the this backbone or backside is towards the ground, so it will become ventral. No, it is not like that. Even for human beings, right, we are erect, so our head is facing towards the sky, so it is not that head will become the dorsal side now. So the proper definition that I can give you here regarding this dorsal and ventral side is that the side where the nerve cord is present, or it is better to say that the side where the notochord is present or the vertebral column is present, that particular side is known as the dorsal side, and the opposite side to that is known as the ventral side. So this dorsal and ventral, it should be very clear to you that exactly what it means. The side where backbone is there. So now there is no confusion whether you are in a standing condition, you are lying down in the bed, or whatever you are doing. The dorsal side is of course the one which is facing towards the backbone or the vertebral column or the notochord in the lower organisms. So this is what the exact definition or exact meaning of this particular sites. Now let us come back to the text, and there you will repeatedly come across these terms. So now I hope there will be no confusion. Now the next important feature of the group Chordata or the phylum Chordata is the presence of the notochord. It is a peculiar feature of the chordate. What is this notochord? Do you have any idea? Noto means back and chord means string. So this notochord is actually a long rod-like supporting structure which is present in the dorsal side of the animals. And over there it is basically separating the nervous tissue and the gut. You can say like it is located ventral to the nerve cord. Okay, see, nerve cord is present in the invertebrates as well as in the case of vertebrates, right? Then I must say that the gut is also present. Gut, which is related to the intestine or the alimentary canal, right? So alimentary canal, of course, in that the intestinal part. Don't get confused with this. Fine. So exactly where this notochord is present, suppose this is the nerve cord. Let me just draw it here. If this is a nerve cord, okay, and let me say below this, the gut region is present, right? And in between these two parts, there is this particular structure which is known as the notochord. So now I hope it is clear that this nerve cord is present towards the dorsal side of the body, right? And in towards the ventral side, that means in the lower condition or beneath this, there is the presence of the notochord. And then below this, there is the presence of the gut part, right? So you can see now that it is exactly present towards the dorsal side, right? Dorsal side of the body. And in higher organisms, this notochord is actually replaced by a bony structure or the cartilaginous structure, which is known as the vertebral column. So this vertebral column is a peculiar feature of the higher animals or the higher chordates, which are known as the vertebrates. Where it is this vertebral column is actually made up of these bony structures or something, and they are arranged in a segmented form at the backside. The specialty of this notochord is that it provides the place for the muscles to attach. That means they are providing some space where the muscles are attaching over there, and now you imagine that what function it is going to now provide. Initially I said it is providing the support at the backside, right? And now as it is providing the space for the muscle attachment, so now it is also helping in the process of movement. um, this notochord, it may be present in the primitive form, right? And it may be in the present, it may be present in the developed form, right? So according to the development of this notochord, that whether it is present in its primitive stage, it is it is present all through the body, or it is replaced by the vertebral column. So depending upon these basic characteristic features, further the chordata group is subdivided. And there I can say that it can be like protochordate or the vertebrate, right? So they are further subdivided, and that of course subclassification I will explain you later. But prior to that, let me finish with those basic features which are present in the chordates. Well, the next important feature is the presence of the gill slits. In these chordates, paired gill slits or the pharyngeal gill slits are always present. And now you may get confused. See, we are the higher organisms, right? We are the mammals. The human beings are the mammals. Human beings, they do not have the gill slits. You will think that part. Am I right or wrong? Basically, see, in when these features are highlighted for the chordate or any other group, then here I mean by this is that these gill slits, they are present either in the adult stage or in the embryonic stage. All throughout the life cycle of any particular organism, these gill slits, they are definitely present. So if we compare our embryonic life, okay, in the embryonic stage at a particular phase, right, in the gestation period, definitely the embryos are having the gill slits, and over there they therefore show some resemblance with the earlier groups. And this is why it suggests that these organisms, that means the human beings, they are having some link with the other groups also. But as the differences are appearing later on, so therefore they have to be placed in the separate group. So this is, see, just basic thing you must remember forever, that the gill slits are the peculiar feature of the higher animals, and these gill slits, they may be present all through the life, or they may be present in some stage of the life cycle of an organism, right? Similarly, the presence of the post-anal tail. Post-anal tail means what? Beyond the anus or towards the posterior side of the anus, the tail is essentially present, right? And again, I will say the same point, that this post-anal tail, it may be present always, or it must be present at some stage of life. And that stage may be like in the embryonic stage or the larval stage or in the adult stage, or every time, forever, whenever, for the time period when the living organism is alive. So this is another feature. You can take example of yourself, right? We are having the tailbone. You must have heard about it, right? And this tailbone is now vestigial in us, right? But in other organisms, it is the site from where the tail is present, or it is extending, right? Besides this, the next feature of these organisms is the heart. Heart is of course present and is always in the it is having the ventral position. Now you understand very well what is this ventral position, right? In some organisms, like in some invertebrates, the heart is present in the dorsal region also. So this is why it is very important to mention this point, that in the chordates, the heart is present always in the ventral position. And these organisms, they are definitely having a well developed closed circulatory system. So closed circulatory system is there, that means definitely a heart is there, and it is also having the blood vessels. So in the higher groups, the heart, it varies in its structure, right? Like it may be two chambered, it may be three chambered, or it may be four chambered. So this is how the ventral heart is there, and which shows the variation with the development of the complexity in the higher groups. Next point is the presence of the endoskeleton. All these organisms that belong to chordata, they are definitely having a endoskeleton. In the vertebrate group, in the invertebrate group, you have studied, I have already explained that exoskeleton is present in different groups, in different forms, right? Sometimes it may not be present, but the endoskeleton, it is only present in the echinodermata. So echinodermata, it shows the development of endoskeleton, but it is lacking the notochord. So it is studied, or it is said that the echinodermata is closely related to the phylum Chordata. Anyways, in the case of chordates, this endoskeleton, it may be made, it is comprised of the bony structure, which is of course supported by the cartilaginous parts, or in some organisms it may be present, or it may be made up of only cartilage. So this is how the endoskeleton is essentially present in different forms in different vertebrates. Next important feature is the body temperature. So body temperature, uh, you know that the body is having a particular temperature, right? But there are some organisms in which this body temperature varies with the surrounding temperature. And there are some organisms in which the body temperature remains constant. They have such type of mechanisms that can help in maintaining their own body temperature even when the surrounding temperature is getting low or it is increasing to a particular limit. But our body temperature remains constant in a particular range. So depending upon this particular property, these vertebrates, they are of two types. They are cold blooded, or they can be warm blooded. So cold blooded, these are those particular organisms in which the body temperature changes with the surrounding temperature, whereas the warm blooded organisms are those in which the body temperature remains constant. Now if it remains constant, definitely they will need high energy also, so as to maintain the body temperature, so as to maintain or to regulate the metabolic reactions in such a way that the body temperature will remain constant. So these are further subclassified in this way. The next point or the next property is the reproduction. These organisms, they are always reproducing by the sexual mode. That means by the fusion of the gametes, right? And in these organisms, they can be now further divided again. Like it depends that whether the fertilization is taking place inside the female's body or it occurs outside the female's body. You have studied about these points, the internal fertilization and the external fertilization, right? So it depends that where the fertilization is taking place. Besides that, the next point regarding this is that the organisms can be oviparous or they can be viviparous. Now, of course, it depends upon this. It is related to sexual reproduction only. Oviparous means they are laying eggs, right? So, egg-laying animals are known as the oviparous animals, whereas the other organisms are there which give birth to the young ones. So such type of organisms or the animals are known as the viviparous. You have already studied about these properties of different types of fertilization in among different organisms, right? In your earlier standard, definitely. So we will not go in much depth regarding this. Uh, Next, I am going to show you one chart which is going to show you the classification of the chordates. The chordates, as we have studied, that these are the basic features, but these basic features, they shows variation among different organisms, or the I can say the simplicity or the complexity of these features varies in different types of organisms. So now let us see that how it is setting a base for the classification of organisms. So students, here is the flow chart which is showing the classification of the phylum Chordata. Initially, these chordates, they are divided into two subgroups on the basis of two basic features. And these two basic features is the presence of the notochord, right? Or the form in which the notochord is present. And the second basic criteria for the subclassification is the brain box or the cranium, that whether it is present or it is not present. So the very first subgroup is known as the acraniata. This acraniata means what? A means absent, craniata is related to the cranium or the skull, right? So in these organisms, the skull or the brain box is absent. Besides this, it is also known as the protochordata. Proto means primitive. Chordata is related to the notochord. So in these organisms, a primitive notochord is present. Now this primitive form of notochord is actually, you know what it means here. It means that it is, number one, it is not at all replaced by the vertebral column. Second thing is that this notochord, it may be present in some stage of life, or it may be present throughout the life, right? Or it may be it is limited to certain region of the body length, right? So this is how the notochord is present, but it is showing some complexity, or it is showing the different variations over there in different organisms. So now depending upon this, they are further subclassified into two subphylums. Phylum is Chordata, right? And now these are subclassified into subphylums. So the very first one is the Urochordata and the second one is the Cephalochordata. Urochordata means the chordate, or I must say that notochord is limited, or it is present to the tail region. Whereas in the cephalochordata, the notochord is present from in the head region or in the body part. So basically, what I mean by this is that the this notochord is present either throughout the length of the body or in some region, and this makes the base for the further subclassification of the group Protochordata. Next one is the Craniata. Craniata, that means they are having the cranium or the brain box is present in these organisms. And this brain box, it may be present as a hard skull over there which is made up of bony structure, or it may be cartilaginous. Next thing is that it is also known as the group Vertebrata. Now vertebrata, that means the vertebral column is present. And as I have already explained you that vertebral column is actually the replacement of the notochord. It is a hard bony structure which is present in between the I'm sorry between the nerve cord and the gut region. So this is how it is present and thus divided into two parts. Now further, these vertebrates, they may have the jaws or the jaws may be absent. So depending upon this fact that whether they are having the jaws or not, they are further divided into two subphylums or the divisions. And these divisions are Agnatha and the Gnathostomata. So Agnatha, it means that the jaws are absent. Now further, according to your syllabus, we have to concentrate on the superclasses of this particular group. right? You may not find these terms in your textbook, but definitely when we are studying about the classification of chordata, prior to reaching these particular groups, that is amphibia or all these species or anything, we need to study the base on which these organisms have been classified. So I am just explaining those basic points, right? Further, the organisms that are having the jaws, they are subdivided into superclasses, and these superclasses is number one the the Pisces, and next is the Tetrapoda. So Pisces is a class it is a superclass in which all fishes will come, right? The fish is actually constituting a single superclass which is known as the Pisces group. And further, it is subclassified into different forms or the different parts, out of which I have only highlighted the two parts, that is Chondrichthyes and the Ostrichthyes. Chondrichthyes is the one which is having the endoskeleton which is made up of cartilage, whereas the another one, that is Ostrichthyes, it is comprised of the fishes which are having the bony skeleton, the endoskeleton. So this endoskeleton is here forming the base for the subclassification of the group Pisces. Next is the Tetrapoda. Tetrapoda means the one which is having the four limbs, and further these four-limbed organisms, they are subclassified, and they are comprised of the classes Amphibia, Reptilia, Aves and Mammalia. All these organisms are having four limbs, but they are having different other characteristic features, and that is actually why these organisms are further subclassified. So now, according to your syllabus, we are going to study about the basic features of which groups, that is Protochordata, then your Pisces, Tetrapoda, and all these these classes which are coming in these two superclasses. So now let us see that what comes under these points or these classes, and this I'm going to continue in the next session. So be ready to understand these basic features of each group, and just go through all these points so that you can understand that how these organisms are subclassified. You know, if you go through these basic points, right, the base which is actually helping in the which is helping in understanding the criteria to classify these organisms, if you understand these basic points, definitely it will give you a great help while studying or learning the points of the related groups. So just revise the things, and then I will come back with the next session where we will discuss the specific points. So till then, thank you so much. Have a nice day. Goodbye.